Moving out with my girlfriend against my parents' wishes. Just for a bit of background, I am a 24-year-old Australian-born Chinese only child, and my parents are Chinese migrants aged 55 and 64. I've been with my girlfriend, who is 19 years old, for 6 months now, and we love each other so much. Recently, I've been having troubles with my girlfriend because of the problems I have with my relationship with my parents. My girlfriend is originally from Canada, but she came here to Sydney to study, and she is staying here to study for the next 3 years. She says that she might consider moving back to Canada if she cannot sustain living here, since she has more opportunities for her there. I was pretty willing to move there with her after 3 years if things went well still. However, my Asian parents both expressed their disapproval of me migrating to Canada. They said they were tolerant of other things, but this was the only thing they didn't want me to do. I discussed options for them, but they wouldn't budge on it, and so when I told my girlfriend about it, she felt upset since she thinks I'd choose them over her. This problem led to her being more distant from me, and I could see that she was disappointed about it. I, on the other hand, am willing to move out with her. However, I still feel slight guilt about leaving my parents behind. They told me one of the main reasons they didn't want me to move out was because they would have no one to take care of them if they had an illness or injuries as they got older. They've also said things like, "We've raised you for 24 years, and now you want to leave after everything we've done for you and taken care of you and stuff." Fast forward to today, and I'm now planning on moving out with my girlfriend to her place in Sydney for a bit, maybe at least 3 months. I will be moving my stuff over quietly overnight and plan to leave on Monday and stay over at hers. I will leave a note behind saying that I am moving out and to only contact me if there is an emergency. But a part of me still feels that guilt of leaving them behind right now. They've still been taking care of me, well, more so my mum, who always treats me well even to this day. She would ask me what's wrong and give her advice on things as well. I want to know if anyone else has faced something similar to this and what exactly I should do. Am I doing the right thing here, or are there other options I can consider? I love my girlfriend so much, but my relationship with my parents has been affecting ours too much. I just feel guilt over leaving my parents, I guess mostly for my mum since she's still been so caring to me up until this day. I would love some advice on how I should approach this. First, you have to live your life for you despite your hang-ups regarding your parents. Moving in with your girlfriend after only 6 months is fast, but your parents left their home for a better life, so maybe moving to Canada is like a tradition for your family. I would suggest moving out on your own first to get used to an empty nest, and then you can have a more serious discussion with your girlfriend in the future. Making grand plans so soon may come off as immature. Would I be the antagonist if I continued to stretch my ears after my BF expressed how much he hates it? I, 30, have been with my boyfriend, 30, for just shy of a decade. He's a very clean-cut guy and very professional in appearance. I, on the other hand, have a sleeve of tattoos, dyed hair, and pierced ears. He works from home as a lead programmer for a company while I work as a manager pet groomer. Despite our opposite looks and career choices, we have lots of interests and opinions in common. If anything, I think our differences help balance us out. Some background that may help add context to our relationship. I started getting tattoos before we met, but my biggest piece was done 2 years ago. He's not a big fan of tattoos and has absolutely no plan to ever get any. It's not a big deal for me, so after he said no, I've just left it. He wasn't a fan of my big piece, but because I've had ink done before, he voiced some concerns about the amount of money I've spent, but left it at that. Fast forward to this past month. I've always liked the jewelry that people with stretched ears get to wear. Some of it looks really cool, pretty, and I, on a whim, decided I would stretch my current piercings. With the help and advice of a friend, I got a kit and have been working on stretching, with the goal being about a TWG Zerog Max. When I first told him about this, he voiced that he really did not like how they looked, and he did not want me stretching to the point where you could look through my ear or fit a pencil. I told him not to worry and that I'd stop before I got to the generally accepted point of no return. Today I was moving up from a Tang to an AG, and he was watching me moisturize and sanitize my jewelry and ears. Once again, he asked how big I was going, and I showed him what a TWG looked like. He gave me an unpleasant look and explained that he again really hated how gauges and stretched ears looked. He further explained that stretched ears were not my aesthetic, as it was more punk, where I fit more into streetwear or gal styles. He doesn't like how they look and doesn't think I'll look good with them. I was disheartened. I took out my jewelry, packed them up, and put them away to maybe discard. I'm now sitting here debating whether I should continue stretching because it's something I want for myself, or if I should honor his wishes and stop. I already pushed my luck with how many tattoos and how big they are, so maybe I should give up on this one thing. I don't want him to think I'm unattractive, so I don't want to change myself past what he's willing to accept. But I also don't want him to tell me what to do with my body. So would it be wrong if I continued stretching my ears after my boyfriend expressed how much he hates it? No antagonists here. Your body, your choice. Just remember that actions have consequences, and it's okay for your boyfriend to have preferences as well. It's all about finding that balance between personal freedom and respecting the feelings of others. Am I the antagonist for evicting my brother and protecting grandma's house? Growing up, my parents favored my youngest brother, M, leaving my sister S, older brother J, and me on the sidelines. Complications during my mom's last pregnancy made M the golden child. Despite my high-functioning autism, I excelled academically, skipping several years ahead of school and even helping my older brother Jay with his studies. However, my parents forced me to also tutor M, and of course I would be punished if he had bad grades. During our childhood, the only one that treated us fairly was Grandma. She lived close by, so she used to babysit all of us all the time. She was specially proud of me because of how much I helped my brothers, and I became her favorite. Eventually, we stayed at her house permanently while going to college. Only M stayed at our parents' house because they would spoil him rotten. Fast forward many years, Jay, now 35 years old, as 29 years old and I'm 31 years old, have distanced ourselves from our parents, building successful lives. Jay is now a professional chef. A is a linguistics teacher, and I became a network engineer. I make almost 4 times what J and S make, so I have financially supported my daughter and set up college funds for her, my nieces and nephews, because S and J are my best friends, and they have helped me immensely because I'm a single dad. Even though I own several properties, I still live at Grandma's house because she is in her late 80s now and needs all the help she can get. Years later, when he turned 26, my parents got sick of supporting M and kicked him out. So M showed up at our grandma's house about 6 months ago, apologizing for all he did to me while growing up, and swore that if I helped him get a job, he would change his ways and would even help taking care of Grandma, which admittedly he did. Cautiously, I let him in and gave him a chance, but sadly, he was just pretending to get me to lower my guard. About a month ago, my daughter and I went for a week of vacation to camp in the mountains. During this time, my brother had forced Grandma to sign a document to transfer ownership of her house to him, and then he kicked her out of her own home. However, he didn't know that Grandma had already legally transferred the property of her house to me, since she had planned to leave it to me in her will anyway. We contacted the police and explained what happened with the documents proving I now owned the house, and that the papers M had were not valid because Grandma was no longer the house owner when she signed them, revealing his fraudulent actions. He is facing charges of fraud, falsified documents, and elders abuse, and could get 10 years of prison. Now, my parents have been calling me non-stop, pleading for mercy for their precious little boy and asking me to drop the charges, so I grapple with the decision to let him face legal consequences. Am I justified, or am I going too far? Not the antagonist. Your parents need to sit down and hush. Your brother's actions are despicable, and he needs to face the consequences. It's time for your parents to realize the role they played in enabling his behavior and stop defending him. Stand your ground and don't back down, no matter what they say. Your grandmother deserves justice, and dropping the charges will only allow your brother to continue his harmful behavior. Stay strong, LPTY. My best friend won't leave his cheating wife. How do I convince him? Too long, didn't read. My 32 best friend Lee, 32 has been cheated on by his wife, Leslie, 33. He won't leave her, and now she wants an open relationship. He is close to agreeing because I am in one. I am sharing this story using throwaway names to protect identities. This is a detailed post, but I believe the background is important for understanding his emotions. Lee and I have been friends since middle school and have supported each other through thick and thin. During our school years, we were known as the smart kids. Lee was more introverted than me, preferring a small circle of friends. He didn't have a girlfriend until college. On the other hand, I married my high school sweetheart, Renee, 32F, 8 years ago. After high school, we attended the same university, pursued the same major, and were roommates. Lee had 2 girlfriends during college, both of whom cheated on him. He tried to mend the relationships, but they ended up leaving her other guys. After completing our 6-year program, we both secured high-paying jobs. 2 years later, Lee met Leslie, his current wife. Initially, everything seemed perfect, and they got married after a year. They have been married for about 5 years now. Around the 2-year mark of their marriage, Lee discovered Leslie's affair, which lasted at least 8 months. She had also monkey-branched from a long-term relationship to be with Lee. While I urged him to get a divorce, he wanted to reconcile, given that she expressed a willingness to work things out. Fast forward to last month when Lee caught Leslie cheating again, this time in their home. He was devastated, and his demeanor indicated it was more severe than before. I've been supporting him while urging him to consider a divorce, but he remains undecided. Leslie has proposed an open relationship where they can have other partners to even the situation. This infuriated me. My wife and I have been together since our sophomore year of high school, with no breakups or separations. While we've explored an open relationship, it's not a constant feature. Currently, my wife has a boyfriend. Leslie's suggestion seemed to turn the tables on us, using our stable relationship to push Lee into agreeing with her proposal. I'm doing my best to dissuade him because open relationships aren't suitable for most individuals. They require significant effort and won't fix underlying problems. I believe Leslie is manipulating him to maintain her ideal image. Despite my unwavering support for Lee, witnessing him undergo such turmoil is distressing. How can I help him see that leaving Leslie is the right choice? I'm also angry at her manipulation of my relationship to influence Lee. My wife has a different perspective, suggesting that if Lee won't leave Leslie, he should agree to the open relationship. She advocates for introducing him to our lifestyle friends as a way for him to adapt. I'm unsure about this approach and would appreciate feedback, especially if you've dealt with a friend stuck in a toxic relationship that they refuse to leave. Thank you for listening, and any advice is welcome. In my opinion, the best advice would be to continue to be there for your friend and provide guidance, but ultimately, it's up to him to make the decision on his marriage. Pushing him towards divorce or any other action may only cause resentment and push him further away. It's important to remember that some people may be beyond help, and that ultimately, it's not your relationship to control. You can offer advice and your thoughts, but ultimately, it's up to your friend to make the choices that are best for him. Am I the antagonist for not forcing my family to share their inheritance with my children? I, 41, have 2 kids, 14 and 16, with my ex Tammy, 37, and according to the divorce decree, neither one of us can take the kids out of state without prior written consent from the other. This was fine for the most part, as neither Tammy or I had any desire to go through any more hassle of co-parenting than we already do. However, my father recently passed away. It wasn't a shock because he was sick for a long time, so while I was sad he was gone, I was also relieved he wasn't suffering anymore. About 50 years ago, my father came to America, got an education and made something of himself, but always missed his home country. When it was determined that there was nothing more that could be done for him, my father wanted to spend his last year in his home country. My sister happily obliged my father's wishes and quit her job to go with him and help with his care. My brother, other sister, and I would also took at least one trip over to see him. Then the holidays came around and my father really wanted to see all of his grandchildren together one last time. My brother and other sister were able to bring their kids over, but when I brought this up to Tammy, 3 months ago, she said she'd think about it. I gave her as much time as I could, but flights overseas during the holidays were expensive, so when I asked her again, Tammy said she needed more time. I asked how much more time did she need, and that led to a fight, and Tammy ended up saying she wouldn't agree. She also got to my kids and said that they didn't want to go either, citing that they didn't speak the language and how they shouldn't have to be inconvenienced just because their grandfather decided to leave the country. I was upset but let it go, and I could tell my dad was a little hurt that the kids didn't come. He tried to video chat them twice but got no response. We had one final dinner together where my dad made a speech about how grateful he was for his family and discussed his will. Aside from my sister who took care of him, the majority of his financial estate would go to his grandkids, and he would be leaving the rest of us sentimental things, which we were all cool with. He passed a few weeks later, and at the reading of the will, my brother and other sister's kids got a decent-sized trust fund, whereas my kids weren't mentioned at all. I did bring this up once, and my sister said our dad was really hurt, that he wasn't worth a video call in his final moments, and only opted to leave them sentimental items. When my kids found out, they were furious, and Tammy demanded that I sue my sister and or my nieces and nephews, but I refused. My kids see this as me putting someone else before them as well as punishing them for not agreeing to go, but I don't see it that way. Am I the antagonist? Not the antagonist. Tammy's decisions cost your children their inheritance, and now she wants to sue for it, but she was the one who insisted they not visit in the first place. Fairness doesn't apply in wills, and lawsuits would only benefit lawyers. Your dad had the right to do what he wanted with his money, and Tammy and your children need to take responsibility for their own actions in this situation. My girlfriend is upset because I paid for her niece's special school bill. When I met my girlfriend Pippa 3 years ago, she was already a foster parent for her brother's daughter. Her niece tragically lost both her parents in a car accident 6 years ago, which she survived as a miracle. Pippa made it clear her niece was her top priority. I perfectly understood this and made both Pippa and her niece my priority in life. Some issues did emerge quite soon. Her niece did come to see me as a dad figure, and Pippa was happy about this, even signing me into guardianship last year. But almost every time I paid something for our adopted daughter, she wanted to know how much I spent she could pay me back. Of course, I didn't want any of it. I am just doing my duty after all. Many times we argued about this, and she came close to shoving the money in my hand. But with time she started to somewhat begrudgingly at first accept me shouldering my financial half of responsibility. On the topic at hand, Pippa's niece goes to a specialized private school fully equipped for children who went through trauma. They have a team of professionals, do things like pet therapy and other things, and this really benefits the girl, so much that she started talking again after becoming mute due to trauma. The school doesn't come cheap, and the bill every 3 months is quite high. I offered many times and tried to contribute, but Pippa got furious, insisting it's her responsibility alone. Cutting the story short, Pippa could not pay the bill that came this month. Again I offered, and again she refused. I put aside quite some savings to get myself a new car, since I was currently driving an old beater that always was on the verge of breaking down. I put my eyes on one of those cool-looking new cars. However, keeping my niece in mind, in the end I bought an older, slightly less cool car, but still hot, and I love the new ride, so I could pay the bill and spare a couple of grands to put back into the savings. Pippa initially didn't connect the dots when I came home with the new car. She didn't understand why I got a cheaper one. I told her that the one I wanted was already sold. However, when her phone ringed with the email from the school that the payment had been received, her first words were, "You son of a bitch." We had a pretty big argument about this, She first accused me of not respecting her boundaries. Then when I asked what she was planning to do since she could not pay the bill, she admitted she was thinking of getting money on loan. That's when I got angry. Getting money on loan was fine for her, but me, her partner, helping out is not. I told her that evidently she doesn't consider me a partner like I consider her, and she calmed down, apologized, and said she does consider me her partner. But she took care of her niece for years without anyone's help, and me doing that makes her feel inadequate. I apologized for going behind her back like that, and she accepted my apologies, but the situation now is still sad. She keeps saying she feels she has failed, and I'm struggling with the fact that apparently she still feels indebted to me when I'm just doing my part. How can we solve this? You need to sit down and have a clear conversation about who does what and why, and seek some sort of counseling together to sort out her issue. It's important to tell her that you love her and want to take care of your future family, if that is your plan. Right now it feels like she's acknowledging you as a caregiver in one respect, but still acting like she's the only caregiver in another, which is confusing for everyone. There needs to be a frank conversation about your role in both of their lives, both practically and financially, and a compromise reached that everyone is comfortable with. It sounds like with her comment about being a failure, she needs to understand that you're doing this because you want to, not because you feel obligated to, and that you guys are a team doing this together. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.